Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Ever think about, what you would do if the world suddenly went haywire?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that, you think about, but hope never actually happens.
Exactly. And that's what makes stories like the one we're diving into today so gripping. The Trade of Kings by Mike Kraus.
Oh, yeah. I've heard good things about his Surviving the Fall series. This book looks like episode 10, right?
You're right on the money, episode 10. So we're getting a glimpse into a world that's already gone through a huge upheaval.
Post-apocalyptic fiction at its finest, right?
Totally. If you're into stories about survival against all odds, the grit, the strategy, the constant threat, then this is right up your alley.
It's all about how people react when the rules are thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Some adapt, some, well, they don't.
And in these excerpts from The Trade of Kings, we're thrown right into two parallel narratives. The first one focuses on Dianne and her family in rural Virginia.
They've already been through so much.
Boss.
A desperate search for medicine. And now they're facing down a dangerous gang that's about to attack their homestead.
It's like everything is on the line for them right now. Their survival depends on what happens in the next few moments.
Talk about intense.
Right. And then we jump to a completely different scene, hundreds of miles away in Washington, D.C. We meet Rick Jane and Dr. Evans. They're on a mission to find the command center for this weapon called Damocles.
Damocles, that's got to be a reference to the sword hanging by a thread, right?
Exactly, symbolizes impending danger. So they're trying to shut this weapon down before it can cause any more damage. But they run into Capitol Police and get caught in this whole other situation.
Yeah, and there's this team of Russian Spetsnaz operatives watching them the whole time with their own plans for Damocles.
It's like a whole other level of intrigue layered right on top of their mission. You're constantly wondering who's going to make a move first and what their true motives are.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Definitely. What really struck me about these excerpts, and I won't spoil anything, was the sheer tension in both storylines. You're immediately pulled into the action and feel the pressure these characters are under.
Yeah, it's like you're right there with them every step of the way, feeling their fear and their determination.
Absolutely. And what I also found so compelling was the resourcefulness of these characters. They're facing impossible odds, but they never give up. They use every skill, every scrap of knowledge, every tool they can find to survive.
It really speaks to the human spirit, that will to keep going even when things look bleak.
Totally. And then the introduction of the Russians, man, that was a brilliant move by Kraus. It adds this whole layer of international intrigue to the story.
You're suddenly wondering, how did they get here?
Huh.
What are their goals? Are they allies or enemies? It's like the stakes just got even higher.
Yeah, it's not just about personal survival anymore. It's about the fate of nations.
Exactly.
Now, just a heads up for listeners who haven't read the previous books in the series, The Trade of Kings has a pretty big cast of characters and a lot of ongoing storylines, so it might take a bit to get everyone straight in your head if you're new to the series.
But that's part of the fun too, right? Unraveling the complexities of this world and its inhabitants.
Oh, for sure. And overall, I'd give The Trade of Kings, based on these excerpts, a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It's a real page-turner with high stakes, constant danger, and that international element just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that this installment is going to be a game changer for the series.
Okay, so let's break down some of these intense moments a little further. Starting with Dianne and her family at the homestead. What were your initial impressions of their situation and how they're preparing for this attack?
Well, what struck me immediately was that contrast between their very practical preparations and their emotional state. They're gathering weapons, reinforcing their defenses, rationing supplies. But at the same time, there's this undercurrent of fear and exhaustion.
It's like they're running on adrenaline. You can sense that they're nearing their breaking point.
Exactly. And you see it most clearly in Tina at first. She's almost in denial, wishing the threat would just disappear.
Yeah.
But Dianne, she carries the weight of responsibility for her family. It's like she's resigned to the fact that they have to fight, even though she's weary of it all.
And that moment when Sarah spots someone outside and everyone's heart jumps into their throats, it's a stark reminder that no matter how much you prepare, you can never truly feel safe in this world.
It highlights the fragility of their existence, even within their fortified homestead. The threat is always lurking just beyond their walls.
But even with that fear, you see how quickly they switch into action mode. Sarah raises the alarm and boom, Dianne takes charge, issuing commands. Tina snaps out of her denial and grabs her rifle. It's like years of living in this dangerous world have honed their instincts.
They've learned that hesitation can be fatal in this new reality.
Exactly. Now switching gears to D.C. The moment those Russian Spetsnaz operatives appear on the scene, everything changes. What did you make of them and their initial interactions?
Well, the way they're described lurking in the shadows, speaking in hushed Russian with that clear focus on Damocles, you immediately get the sense that they're not just random survivors, they're a highly trained unit with their own agenda.
And remember how the Spetsnaz leader, Ostap, corrects the technician's English, but then tells him to shut up because they might be overheard by the Americans?
Yeah, that little detail was brilliant. It shows that they're aware of being in a foreign and potentially hostile environment. It adds to the tension and realism of the scene.
And the fact that they're so interested in the thermal signatures from the motorcycles, it shows they're thinking tactically. They're analyzing every detail, looking for any
They're
advantage.
not just observing. They're actively assessing the situation and planning their next move.
And then things get even more complicated when the Russian technicians recognize Dr. Evans. It's like a bomb just went off in the middle of the story.
Right, suddenly Dr. Evans isn't just a random scientist anymore. He's a key figure in the development of Damocles, which makes him incredibly valuable to the Russians.
And you see always one of the technicians actually expressing a willingness to help Dr. Evans stop Damocles. So now you've got this potential internal conflict within the Russian team.
Are they all on the same page? Do they have conflicting loyalties? It adds a whole new layer of uncertainty to the situation.
Absolutely. And then Ostap, the Spetsnaz leader, he's clearly suspicious of the American government. He can't believe they would send such a small group into this dangerous area without a hidden motive.
It makes you wonder if Damocles is just a pawn in a much larger game. Maybe the Russians are playing a whole different game that Rick and his group aren't even aware of.
That's the beauty of this kind of storytelling. It keeps you guessing. It keeps you hooked. Back at the homestead, the confrontation with the intruders turns violent so fast. And Diane's internal struggle with using lethal force, it really gets to the heart of the moral dilemmas people face in this kind of world.
It's a question we all might ask ourselves, right? How far would we go to protect ourselves and our loved ones? What lines would we be willing to cross?
Yeah, it's easy to judge from the outside, but when you're in that situation, it's a whole different story. And then Tina takes that decision out of Diane's hands by taking down one of the intruders with her sniper rifle.
She doesn't hesitate. She sees the threat and she eliminates it. It shows how different people cope with the trauma of this new world.
And it also shows that the group's unity is fragile. They may be a family, but they don't always agree on the best course of action.
It's a realistic portrayal of the tensions that can arise in a survival situation.
Then we get that incredible scene of the nighttime ambush at the homestead. Diane and her group have set up all these traps, and they're waiting for the gang to attack. It's like something out of a war movie.
It shows just how resourceful they are. They've used their knowledge of the terrain and their ingenuity to create a formidable defense system.
And those remotely triggered traps that Jason rigged up. Talk about impressive. It just goes to show that even in a world gone mad, there's still room for innovation.
It's a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and problem solving, even in the darkest of times.
But the attack also highlights the relentless nature of the threat they're facing. The gang keeps coming wave after wave. They're determined to wipe Diane and her family out.
And the use of Molotov cocktails. It's a sign that the attackers are escalating the conflict. They're no longer just trying to drive them out. They're trying to destroy everything.
It's a sobering reminder that even when you think you've won a battle, the war is far from over.
Survival is a constant struggle with no guarantees.
And you see that in Diane's reaction even after they've repelled the attack. She's exhausted, but she knows it's not over. She's always on guard, always anticipating the next threat.
She's become a warrior even though it goes against her nature. It's a transformation that many characters in post-apocalyptic stories undergo.
Meanwhile, in D.C., this uneasy alliance is forming between Rick's group and the Russians. But Jane is deeply suspicious of the Spetsnaz officers, and that creates a whole new level of tension.
You can't blame her for being wary. She's been through a lot.
Mm.
She knows that trust is a precious commodity in this world.
And her instincts are telling her that the Russians aren't being completely honest. They have their own goals, and those goals might not align with Rick's mission to stop Damocles.
It sets up this classic conflict of interests, where everyone is trying to survive, but they also have their own agendas that could clash at any moment.
And makes you question, who can you really trust in this world? Are there any true alliances, or is everyone just looking out for themselves?
It's a question that runs through so much of post-apocalyptic fiction. It explores the breakdown of societal norms and the emergence of new power dynamics.
And then we get that final scene in the excerpts. Back at the homestead, someone disables the security cameras with arrows before Diane is wounded. It's like a punch to the gut.
It's a major escalation in the conflict. It shows that the attackers are learning, they're adapting their tactics, they're becoming more sophisticated and more dangerous.
And the fact that they target the security cameras first, It shows they're thinking strategically. They're trying to blind Dianne and her group before they make their move.
And those arrows, they suggest a level of skill and precision that we haven't seen before. It's unsettling.
And then Dianne getting shot, it leaves you reeling. It makes you realize that even the strongest, most prepared characters are vulnerable.
It's a classic cliffhanger ending. It leaves you desperate to know what happens next. Will Dianne survive? Will her family be able to hold off the attackers?
Exactly, and that's where we have to leave it for now. But if you're as intrigued by this world and these characters as we are, then definitely check out The Trade of Kings by Mike Kraus.
Yeah, and if you haven't started the Surviving the Fall series yet, this is the perfect time to jump in. You won't be disappointed.
We'll have links to the book and the series down in the description, so hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what you thought of this deep dive.
We always love hearing your thoughts and theories about the stories we explore.
And if you know anyone else who loves post-apocalyptic fiction, then be sure to share this video with them.
Let's spread the word and get more people talking about this amazing genre.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. In a world stripped bare, where everything we take for granted is gone, who holds the real power? And what are they willing to do to achieve their goals?
It's a question that goes beyond the immediate struggles for survival. It forces us to examine the nature of power and ambition in its rawest form.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the worlds of science fiction and fantasy.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those imaginations running wild.